this coming Sunday for my San Francisco 49ers begins an important stretch of games, probably the most important stretch for their 2024 season, as they try to keep their playoff hopes alive, as well as mainly their division hopes alive in the NFC West when they take on the Seattle Seahawks. That begins this important 3-game stretch in this 2024 season. So this is a rematch from their Week 6 meeting back in the early heyday of October. And the last time these two teams met in Seattle for that first meeting, Brock Purdy threw for 2 touchdowns in the red zone, where they've been having trouble all season long. But in that game, they did pretty okay in that red area. Purdy, again, threw for 2 touchdowns in that red area to George Kittle. But even then, Geno Smith and the Seahawks managed to stay alive in that game, cut it down to 5 in the fourth quarter before Isaac Grendo had this big run very late in the game to essentially seal the game with a Kyle Juszczyk touchdown, 36-24, to keep that range away from the Seahawks. So they get that key victory against the Seahawks. And I mentioned around that time that was an early must-win game for the 49ers because they exactly didn't do well in that early stretch of the season. They had lost to the Vikings. They also lost to the Rams in a very early key division game. And then just days prior to the Seahawks game, the first one, they just lost a very winnable game to the Arizona Cardinals. Another gotta have them division games. And I said back then, if they had lost to the Seahawks in that Week 6 meeting, you go 0-3, the season's kind of basically done. So you didn't want to risk going 0-3 that very early in the season, and then you go into that next game against Kansas City, which they ended up losing. And had you lost that game to the Seahawks, you were kind of essentially screwed. So they managed to win the game, and here they are sitting at 5-4, still pretty alive in this kind of weak NFC West. So they're behind the Arizona Cardinals, who are at 6-4 right now. They're on a bye, but they can catch up to them while they're on their vacay. So let's look back at the week that was for both of these teams heading into this matchup. The Seahawks were actually on a bye this past week, but the last time we saw them in action, they were in a meat-grinding battle in the division against the Rams, while the 49ers were on their bye week back in Week 9. So those two teams went the distance, went to extras in overtime, and in that extra period, the Seahawks failed on their chance to score on their first possession, and they paid for it. Matthew Stafford threw this basket pass on the Rams' 4th play in overtime to Demarcus Robinson to win that game, and the Rams got themselves their own key divisional win, 26-20 in that one. And Geno Smith in that one didn't exactly play well. Had 2 red zone interceptions, one of them a pick 6. So that's something that Niners will certainly want to pick on in this rematch. Speaking of my Niners, they were also, when they returned from the bye week this past week in Week 10, they were in a tighter battle than it needed to be. Like Baker Mayfield and the Bucs on the road, but still, this Bucs team was pretty beat up. I talked about it in both my preview and the recap of that game. This was a Bucs team that had no Chris Godwin, no Mike Evans, and they were missing a few, but not that many key players on defense. But this was still a pretty beatable Bucs team that the Niners can go and attack. And well, they were in a closer battle than expected, and it needed to be due to spotty play from Brock Purdy and serious major special teams issues, especially from their returning kicker Jake Moody, that essentially kept the Bucs in the game. So it's like we were crashing out, and we were like getting pissed off. But in the end, though, Jake Moody shook off 3 missed field goals to kick a buzzer beater to win it, 23-20 in the Niners' return game from their bye week. But still, these were issues that honestly should have been fixed during the bye week. And I get it, Jake Moody coming back from his first game since suffering a high ankle injury in that Cardinals game a couple weeks ago. So maybe there was rust but still, like, damn, 3 missed field goals. Seriously, in that return game, like, yikes. And then, yeah, Purdy didn't exactly play the brightest in that game. There were a lot of high passes, and then he was missing open guys quite a lot in that game. Yeah, he still won the MVP. Yeah, the Nickelodeon Valuable Player. As if Jimmy G didn't win that thing 2 years ago. But I mean, hey, Brock Purdy won it. He was the quarterback that brought that shit home, pal. Yeah, Brock Purdy, the Nickelodeon MVP for Week 10. He beat out Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray for that. Unfortunately, he couldn't bring that home. He couldn't bring it home back in February. But it is what it is. He got ourselves an MVP for the regular season. So I guess that's something. And also in other news, before we get into the injury report, Deon Medor Lenore. He got himself a big fat contract now. So congratulations to him. He actually has been playing very well. He's more than earned it. So good for him. Now moving on to the injury report for this game. For the Seahawks, DK Metcalf, who missed a couple games before the bye week with a knee injury. He's expected to return for this game, having fully practiced this past week. So it looks like he's going to be very on track to return for this game, which will be bad news for the Niners. Kind of spotty defense. Noah Fant, he could be missing this game due to a groin injury. He hasn't practiced all week, but we'll see about the Friday practice. Center Connor Williams, not expected to play. He's been away with a personal matter. Edge rusher Leonard Williams, he's been limited in practice with the foot issue, but we'll see if he'll be good to go. If he's not, then that's kind of a big issue for the offensive line for Seattle. Meanwhile, for the 49ers side of things, Charvarius Ward, he remains away from the team, and understandably so because of the passing of his 1-year-old son. So honestly, give him as much time as he needs to mourn and all that jazz. Meanwhile, in terms of the football side of things, Nick Bosa in real danger of missing this game with a hip injury that he had in practice prior to the Bucs game, and he played through that hip injury, and it's starting to really affect them. So if Nick Bosa is not going to be playing this game, that's a big hit to the pass rush, and that pass rush is going to be pretty non-existent. Like, you don't have Javon Hargrave anymore for this season, and you lose out on Nick Bosa for this game, especially against this tantalizing Seahawks offensive line, and there's no pass rush for the 49ers. Where are you going to get the pressure from, man? Like, where are you going to get it? Especially, like, there's nothing for Leonard Williams to feast on. Leonard Floyd. Like, where's the help going to come from for Leonard Floyd? Meanwhile, the punter, Mitch Wisnowski, likely to miss this game with a back injury. Not sure where he picked it up from, but it's been nagging him for some time, I guess. Hence, the Niners signed former Bears punter Pat O'Donnell to the practice squad. And if Mitch Wisnowski is going to miss this game, they're going to elevate O'Donnell to the active roster on game day. Meanwhile, some potential IR activations could be coming up for this game against the Seahawks, like edge rusher Yuta Gross-Matos and John Feliciano on the offensive line. Like, if they're activated for this game, it could be a big boost for both sides of the ball, especially for Yuta Gross-Matos if he can play in this game with Nick Bosa potentially being out. So it could be a nice boost for that defensive front. Looking at the keys to victory for both of these teams, for the Seahawks, as with the last meeting, find any way to pressure Brock Purdy, because their pass rush has been very mixed for most of the season so far. I mean, Leonard Williams has been pretty much like one of the, if not the only guy that can consistently get to the quarterback. And everyone else has just been They've been very So they have to get to Purdy this time around, especially with how spotty his play has been recently, especially in that game against Tampa Bay. Meanwhile, on the offensive side of things, you got to reestablish the running game with Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet to set up the passing attack for Geno Smith. And so far in these last several games, like, they've been having a lot of trouble with it. Don't know what the issue is, but they couldn't certainly do it in the first meeting against the 49ers. And yeah, like I said, been having a lot of trouble setting up the run. But with potentially no Nick Bosa, they can attack this weekend run defense for San Francisco and finally establish the run with Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker III, which in turn will balance out the offense for the Seahawks. And as long as Geno Smith doesn't commit any stupid turnovers for the Seattle side of things, then that can finally open up the passing game, especially now that you have DK Metcalf back and you get a repeat performance of what's his name? Tyler Lockett and the other guy, Jackson Smith-Njigba. There you go. I guess I can't remember it that well because the name's always so hard to pronounce. But anyway, look at the 49ers side of things. Looking at the defense first. The offense first. You got to pick apart that Seahawks middle of the pack defense with George Kittle and Ricky Pearsall. Like, I feel like this has to be a Ricky Pearsall type of game because, he's been doing pretty good ever since he started getting more reps with Brandon Ayuk out for the season. So Purdy will have to continue to trust in Pearsall as he looks to increase his role in the offense, continue to look his way, and also continue to look George Kittle's way against this defense, especially a defense that continues to get torched in these last few games, including the first meeting against San Francisco. Meanwhile, you look at the special teams unit. I just want something remotely positive. Anything positive would certainly help. With this special teams, it's one of the worst in the league. It's one of the worst I've seen in my eyes. Like, Jake Moody needs to seriously have a rebound game. And I get it. A lot of the kickers this past week have been struggling, but Jake Moody, man, it's like, please, make more than half of your kicks. Like, make the makeable kicks. Or, if you don't, I want to see his ass cut before the next game. Bring back Anders Carlson. Bring back Anders Carlson. Like, seriously, I do not want to see Jake Moody if he keeps putting on these duty performances. If he can't shake off the rust, then bring me back Anders Carlson. And I also don't want to see these major mishaps on kickoff returns, punt returns. Like, we really have to clean this up. Like, the special teams coach, get together and do some simple drills, some simple kickoff, punt return drills during practice. Like, these things should not be happening during games. Like, why are we having this? This is not good. Like, to have these happening in live games. So, looking at this game between the Seahawks and the Niners in this rematch of Week 6, like, the Niners got to have this one. Like, the Seahawks are beatable. Like, if they take them too lightly, then the Seahawks are gonna take it. They're gonna split the season series, and it's gonna give them right back into this NFC West race. But them at 5-5, evening things up with the 49ers, and they'll put them squarely up in the division. But the Niners, they gotta have this one. Like, they gotta have this one to keep pace with the Cardinals, and obviously keep themselves alive if they want to in the NFC playoff race. And especially considering coming up next after that, a 2-game road trip against the Packers and the Buffalo Bills. So 2 very tough games in very cold conditions, unfortunately, with no very cold lasagna. So, yeah, the Niners have to have this one, and hopefully we expect them to get that one. So, yeah, the Niners take on the Seahawks this coming Sunday. Hopefully they'll win this one, and they'll do it handedly. So, let me know your thoughts on the Niners' upcoming game against the Seattle Seahawks. I hope to see good special teams play, and they take care of the business and sweep Seattle. But until then, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. Drop me your predictions in the comments below. But until then, peace out.